contract like a week after that. So that all happened very quickly, so I never got a chance to go back to Japan. So fast forward to when my time with WWE was ending, I still wanted to wrestle. I didn't know where I was going to go, what was going to happen. I was obviously putting feelers out. I reached out to All Japan. We actually came to an agreement. I was supposed to go back to All Japan in late February of 2011. And they backed out, and it was just kind of like, okay, I don't know what's going on here. Their excuse was they weren't going to bring as many guys in to save money, whatever. So I asked the person that I was dealing with in Japan if they would even reach out to New Japan for me. And they did. They basically let New Japan know that I was interested, that I was a big American, and I just finished WWE and so on and so forth. And New Japan, I don't think, knew anything about me other than the fact that they told them that I was this big guy Jin, and I just finished WWE. And at this time, with New Japan, there weren't a lot of foreigners. Giant Bernard, who, was A-Train before, became Lord Tensai, and is now the head trainer at NXT. He was there, and his tag team partner at the time was Carl Anderson. You had Fergal Devitt, a.k.a. Finn Balor, who was there. There was a very few guys, and so New Japan was interested. So in Philadelphia, 2011, or actually New York and Philadelphia, New Japan did a small East Coast invasion tour. And MVP had already been in the company for some time. That was when they crowned their first Intercontinental Champion, who was MVP. They asked me to come to Philadelphia, and when I got to Philadelphia, it was kind of an interesting situation because all of a sudden, a lot of the people within New Japan I'd already met before, and they knew me, and they didn't realize they knew me till I showed up, and they went, "Oh, we know you," because they'd met me when the guys had come to TNA at different times. Anytime they were in New York and with WWE, Tiger Hattori would always come to the shows and stuff. So the relationship was already there with guys. Just nobody knew it until we were face to face. And then I was only supposed to be going over to New Japan for one event, and it was kind of to be my tryout moment. Once they realized who I was, in a sense of they knew me, not necessarily like who I was within wrestling, just as a person, all of a sudden it was like, hey, can you stay for an extra 2 weeks? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. And like I said, luckily I did my part, did well in my initial match, and did well in the 2 extra weeks that I stayed over, and so on and so forth. And like they say, the rest is history. I've had an amazing, fun, best part of my career in Japan, in the last 6 years.
And taking part in the G1 Climax, it was 2011, 12, and 13, I believe. I mean, that's got to be such an honor, especially, like you said, for a foreigner at that time. You had,
and 2004.
Albert there. And
I did four.
There were four tours.
Yep.
So, I mean, that schedule, the G1 schedule, I mean, I know they say, WWE guys are on the road 250, 300 days a year. The G1 schedule is really unlike any other schedule in professional wrestling. That I can't imagine the toll that takes on your body, and especially with such, a strong physical style. The G1 has to be one of the most intense tournaments there are out there, period.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it is regardless of professional wrestling anywhere else in the world, it is the best and number one singles tournament that exists. No other company puts on a better singles tournament than the G1 Climax. So as far as the grueling schedule, it was kind of different back in 2011 and the 4 years that I was a part of it. It was still grueling, but it wasn't what it is today. Like today, now it's a month-long event, where they're having shows in so many different cities, and guys are, they'll work G1 matches some nights, and then they'll work tag matches the other nights, kind of back and forth, and so on and so forth. Back then, like, I remember the first tour I did, I think literally like every night was a G1 match, and then we all had like one specific complete night off where you just weren't booked. You just weren't, either if we were on tour, you just hung out for the day at the venue. If we were in Tokyo and you weren't on the show and you didn't want to go to the show, you could just have the day off. It was grueling back then, but there weren't as many shows, and it wasn't like this month-long grind that it has become today. I think the 1 year when they decided to start expanding the tour both so they can make more money off of it, obviously, but also to kind of give guys a break and break up the monotony or the hardness of the schedule, and working singles matches every single night and at that level was, I want to say, my last year that I was part of it, because we literally did 9 shows in 11 days. And it was intense. And that was the year that Goto got his jaw broke. Tenzan had a rib broke, so they both had to bow out of the tournament and stuff like that. So it's one of those things where they went, okay, this is too hard, too much, too fast, so we're going to expand it and try to give them breaks in between to help them along. But like I said, in the last couple of years, especially with the addition of the New Japan World, which has come along when Bushiroad, the company that bought New Japan, it's become such a long, big event. By the end of it, the guys are still they've been on buses and planes and trains, and they've wrestled everywhere they could in Japan. And all these shows are, especially the ones that are live on the New Japan World, which I think was pretty much every G1 events, everything is in a bigger capacity. It was such a grind. Like this year was my first year getting to be at the final again, because Smith and I did our surprise run in, and just, to see the guys, and, that night it was just Kenny and Naito who were having the main event, which those two, oh my gosh, if you saw that match, was just insane. But you could just tell that everybody was they were so happy that it was done, that they were finished for that tour, that it was like, okay, we can do tonight, we'll all bust our ass, but then we get a little bit of time off, thank goodness, because it had been such a hard grind. So it was very different when I was there and a part of it for the 4 years that I got to be a part of it. And then, we went away for those 2 years to Noah. And then in this last year, myself getting injured and not having Smith in it and whatnot. So it's been 3 years since I've been a part of the G1, and it's changed drastically because of the New Japan World and the expansion into the U.S. market and things like that. So they both had their hard points, but it's a very different one these days, especially with being 19 shows over basically a month-long period. It's crazy.
Having said that, this year at the finals, like you said, you and Harry Smith came back and you attacked the Guerrillas of Destiny and War Machine. The Killer Elite Squad, did you know Harry beforehand, or was that just kind of the perfect meeting of two guys that formed a great tag team?
The story of my tag team wrestling career has just kind of been thrown together with guys, from me being put with Kid Cash way back in the TNA days and that working well, to, I did a time with Truth and Ron Truth Killings in TNA, and that was fun. And then obviously Jimmy Rave and so on and so forth. Harry, or Davey Boy Smith Jr., he and I knew each other from WWE, because he was, him and Tyson Kidd were together. They were tag champs back then. We worked some tours with them, against them and stuff like that. But, we didn't know each other. We just knew each other. Hey, man, what's up? Shake your hand. How you doing? Whatever. And that was about the extent of it, as wrestling is a lot of times. I'd been with New Japan since June of 2011, and they brought him in, I want to say September 2012 is when they brought him in. Yeah, because then we won our first IWGP tag titles in October of 2012. So I'd been there, a little over a year at that point, and they were wanting to bring Smith in. They told me that they were going to put us together as a tag team, and obviously he was being brought into Suzuki-gun, which I'd already been a part of. And as far as the Killer Elite Squad, we created the name. We talked to each other and decided to come up with names, and talked to the booker and said, hey, this is what we'd like you to do. We know we're part of Suzuki-gun, but if we're going to be a tag team, we'd like to give the tag team its kind of its own identity within the group and so on. And they loved the idea, and Smith and I came up with, KES, Killer Elite Squad. And, we've worked really well together. And it's been a fun ride, watching the growth and transition, from how we've both changed in our styles and our way that we've worked together and stuff like that. It's been a lot of fun, man.
Yeah, and with the tag team division in New Japan Pro Wrestling, there's a lot of big bad guys out there. And so we have Destruction coming up on September 10th. It's War Machine versus Guerrillas of Destiny versus you and Harry for the IWGP tag team titles. They just announced that this week. that is going to be the whole card. They have the destruction here in Fukushima and in Hiroshima. That's, those are some big matches that, like you said, are going to get a lot of press because of New Japan World. And now that they've added the English commentary in there, I think that's going to open up to a whole different world, especially since they expanded over to California. What do you see the future for New Japan? Do you think we're going to see a more consistent U.S. presence?
Oh, absolutely. I think the wrestling world has expanded so tremendously because of the internet. The internet can be an evil, evil place, but it can also be a very cool place for, it's helped expand independent wrestling. New Japan, obviously having New Japan World and then they're on Access TV, it's helped open their market to a whole new audience that's in the States. It's one of those things like, I've been with the company since 2011, and it's kind of funny that because we had that 2 years that, our group, Suzuki-gun, was, loaned off to Pro Wrestling Noah, like us coming back, like there's people that haven't seen us, that in a sense don't know who the Killer Elite Squad are, although we have a history within New Japan. Like I said, we're two-time IWGP Tag Team Champions. We've worked 2 different Wrestle Kingdoms as the IWGP Champions. So we've been there, but just in the last couple of years with the expansion in New Japan World and how much access has grown and the U.S. market has grown and the world market has grown, they've expanded tremendously into the UK environment and their relationship with Ring of Honor, which has, I think, been a tremendous thing for New Japan and Ring of Honor, to help expand. Obviously, look at like guys like War Machine, a tag team that's former Ring of Honor tag team champions, that made their name with Ring of Honor. They got on with New Japan because of that relationship and have exploded in Japan, have done extremely well. So to see that on both sides for talents that are, both New Japan talents and Ring of Honor talents, and then being able to flourish because of those two. When you ask, are we going to see more consistency in the States? I think absolutely. Did you happen to see the Los Angeles G1 specials? Did you happen to see those?
Yes, we did. Sorry about that. Yeah, we saw both of those back to back. I mean, and the crowd for those shows, I mean, I really believe they could do, 8, 10, 12,000 seat arena.
Yeah, but that was the thing. For them, it was a testing ground. We know that there's a U.S. market out there. We know that people are wanting to see us as far as New Japan goes, but it's a smart expansion, So they basically, Korakuen Hall, which is a very famous wrestling arena in Japan, their shows every weekend in that venue. Sometimes there'll be 2 or 3 shows a day, depending on different companies coming out. There'll be a early, morning to afternoon, an early afternoon show, and then an evening show sometimes. 3 wrestling shows in the same building, all just in and out, bang, bang, bang. It's about a 2,100, 2,200 seat building, at capacity. And that's kind of what they wanted, was something in the similar size range as Korakuen Hall, because they wanted to see how they would do and how the market would sell. And obviously with the speed that the tickets sold out, when they initially put them online and for sale, was amazing to them, to the point where they put, an extra 300 for each day, and those sold out like in 10 minutes, from my understanding. Because of that, because of how well it did and the reception they received at the shows, during the shows, and everything that just went so well with it. They absolutely have plans. They already announced that they would be coming back in 2018, but that was a precursor. And the way it went so well, it absolutely opened their ideas and minds to doing so much more in the U.S. I know that they're planning on opening a dojo in Los Angeles. They're going to set up an office in Los Angeles. It's something they haven't done in years. Fergal Devitt and Shinsuke and all those guys were in one of the original LA dojos, but that closed down. Now they're reopening it in Los Angeles, kind of setting base in LA. And so I think when they do something next time, they will reach out and see if they can get 5,000, 8,000 people into a venue. And if that does well, then they'll expand from that. And if all of it goes well, I think they absolutely have plans on U.S. touring, kind of with their own U.S. touring brand of wrestlers, both American and Japanese, guys that will come over from Japan and spend, 2, 3, 4 weeks, a month's time over here, kind of like we do when we go over to Japan and run a touring company, but it's a slow process. They don't want to go too fast and overstep their boundaries and put themselves in a hole. They're trying to do it smartly, But I think it's absolutely something you're going to start seeing, and it's like that choo-choo train. Once it gets going, it's hard to stop, and I think that's where they're headed right now.
I think New Japan Pro Wrestling definitely gives an alternative to American wrestling fans, because a lot of American wrestling fans are not huge on the